Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Oh, I need some energy. Come on, Shabbat Shalom. Yes, it is good. It's good to be here. TGIF. It is Shabbat. We are here. As we get settled, a welcome to members. We're so glad that you're here. And if anybody is a visitor, just come on and introduce yourself to us at the end. We'd love to see you. A reminder for congregants that over there is the Shalom Sanctuary, an alternative worship space for anybody who needs it. Under your chair, we have Mishkan Tefillah. Go ahead and do the reach. This is a highly participatory service. We have prayers that we read together. We have singing. We have taps and claps and la la la. God understands all of them. Exits, in case we need to leave quickly. It's good to see where we need to go. Just take a look around. If you have a cell phone or a smartphone, will you make sure that you're not going to get a call in the middle of the service? Because remember my rule, if you get a call, I answer it. And that's fun for everybody. Okay? All right. Soloist Jessica Tillum. Rabbi Spike Anderson. Take a moment or two or three. Please turn to the people around you. Say, hi, how are you? Shabbat Shalom, good to see you. Introduce yourself. By name is even better. Let's take a full minute or even two to kibitz. Let's get to know each other a little bit. So my view every Friday and Saturday morning is of all of you. Your view is up this way. I think I've got the better view, actually. But if you look around here, let's just take a second and point out or call out what are some of the symbols and signs that we have in this TE sanctuary. What do you see that you can identify? Just raise a finger and I'll call. Go ahead, Arlene. So you got the Ner Tamid right above the top, okay, the eternal sign of the Jewish people. What else? What else do we have, Nora? Okay, so we've got the 12 tribes on the ark. We're going to talk about them a little bit tonight. For those who read Kesher Quick, you got a preview on that. What else? What else do you see? Yep. Okay, so starting on this side, you've got 1 through 5, 6 through 10 of the commandments, the first 2 words of each of the commandments, and then an artistic representation of what that commandment is. Okay? What else? What else do you see? Yeah, Peter? Okay, you've got the menorahs on either side. And Peter, just take a quick look. How many I don't know what you would call it. How many candles would fit on those menorahs? 7, yeah. So this is not a Hanukkah. It's a menorah, right? So this is probably what the menorah looked like, something like that, in the temple. And if you've been to the Arch of Titus in Rome and you see the proclamation of the defeat of the Jewish people by the Romans, you see them carrying a menorah that looks like that. But that's the Temple of Emanu-El symbol or sign. Any other ones? Yeah? Yeah, so if you look at the top, and I really love that, you'll see the stained glass with the friezes, and you have 6 scenes from Moses' life, starting with the burning bush and going all the way through to the second time Moses comes down with the second set of commandments, and his face is covered, and you can figure out the ones in between, if not now, later. So there's also, there's probably a couple more worth mentioning, at least 2 symbols or signs. Yeah, we got the flags, right? 2 flags. We're American Jews, most of us, right? We have 2 homes, right? We've got the American flag representing our home here, and we got the Israel flag representing our second home, our home across the sea. So we're surrounded in this sanctuary by symbols and images that put us into the story and serve as metaphors. But they're not just metaphors. Just metaphors can be dismissed as being irrelevant. They are poignant, these metaphors, and seek to convey intergenerational wisdom. In fact, all of our customs and stories and rituals serve to remind us that we can act in this world to make it better, that we can act in our lives to make them meaningful. Yes, sometimes it can seem like the world is on fire. And so our rituals remind us that there's hope, and that hope depends on each one of us. That is the gist of Judaism. Our symbols and the stories that they hold ground us when time seems to storm, and they lift us when we can't escape our anchors. For we Jews believe, or at least we tell ourselves that this is the case, that we've been tapped by God to be partners with God to take the world from where it is, a place of dark brokenness, to where the world should be, a place of light and healing and wholeness. And as an example, in a moment we'll rise to light the Sabbath lights, and we're not just lighting candles. We're actively taking steps and reminding ourselves that we can to bring more light into the world, into our lives, and into the sacred relationships that make life worth living. Page 120, please rise. Margie and Nora are going to light one candle each, and then Jessica's going to lead us with the blessing. And now together we bring in the light and the warmth and all that delicious reminders of Shabbat love.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
V'hadlik ner shel Shabbat Shalom. If you'd like to come light your own candles up here, we do so to Shalom Aleichem, page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai
Please be seated. You'll find page 138, Lecha Dodi. This is the prayer composed in northern Israel and Sfat by the Kabbalists. This is a prayer that is supposed to bring us to a particular place where we understand, at least in the moment, that the Jewish people in Shabbat are two halves to a whole. We are a besheret to one another. Without us, the week and time, the year itself cannot be complete. And without Shabbat, we are running on that eternal hamster wheel. They say that Jews invented the weekend with Shabbat. And the image that comes with the Chadodi is of the groom eagerly awaiting his bride to come down the aisle, knowing that once they're together, the rest of both of their lives can begin. Lecha Dodi, page 138.
B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'litzchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki makor habracha, Be'erosh megidem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila.
Here we go.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5.
Hitoreri, ki ba'orechu mi'ori, uri shir taberi, kevod Adonai alach yiknikla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise to face the door.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'tzochola, Toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Page 147, we pray together in the English. There is one who sings the song of his own life together, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarech, let us bless. Baruch Hu 146.
Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
As you came in, if you looked up in the dark sky, you would see the full moon or something that's pretty close to being full with stars. Our Ma'ariv, our Ravim prayer, our roll in the dark prayer is one that just celebrates that. Celebrates the beginning of the Jewish day, which is at night, and celebrates our place and the whole world of existence. Your back inside cover, roll into dark.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Boreom v'layla, boreom mipnei choshet, boreom mipnei choshet, v'choshet mipnei or.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Shema, page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. In a minute, we'll continue on 154 with the Via Havta, which is the second part of the Shema. The Via Havta prayer asks a question in the context of its text itself. When is it that we're supposed to be our best aspirational selves? When is it we're supposed to lead with our Judaism, God-centric and focused? And the answer that it gives at first seems to be a pretty good answer. Well, when you stand up, when you sit down, when you're at home, when you're on the way. In other words, always. You're always supposed to be your best. But if you think about it for a moment, that's actually a terrible answer. How can you always be your best? Right? How can you anything mindfully always? And so the Via Havta is a prayer that reminds us that we have reminders, apropos the symbols that you see in the synagogue. There are things in our lives, our Jewish community, the synagogue, the symbolism in our home. And one of the pieces that's specifically talked about is the mezuzah, right? And what's inside the mezuzah? The Shema and the Via Havta. That's the prayer that's inside. That we have reminders all around us to sort of jolt us back to a a particular direction, that we can be better, that we can try harder, that we can stay focused, that we can be kinder, that we can reach out more. All of these things, all in this Via Hafta prayer, reminding us that we have reminders that we have a better self. Together, Via Hafta 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך
והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם
ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם מאוד על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים.
אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem emet. If you look at page 159, we're going to pray this together in the English. Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Michamoka 158.
Kamocha ba'alim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, no ratehi lo rosefele, no ratehi lo rosefele. Malechutecha ra'uvanecha, bokei ayom lifnei Moshe, zelianu ve'ameru, zelianu ve'ameru.
Adonai imo le'olam va'ed.
Adonai imo le'olam va'ed.
Each of the symbols that you see that we were shouting out at the beginning of the service is supposed to be a shorthand, like a shortcut to a story. And each of the stories is not just our pseudo-history or our sacred myths, but we're supposed to see ourselves personally in each of them. These are not just metaphors, they are divine metaphors. They're sacred metaphors. We're at the end of the book of Genesis, we're in Vayechi, and a lot of what you see in this sanctuary is a shorthand to take us to that Jacob story. And even if you know the Jacob story really, really well, and you've heard it many, many times, or read it many times, or studied it many, many times, it's going to be different this time because you're different than last time. That's partly how we do this. The stories almost become a shorthand in Judaism, a language into itself through the stories. The Kesher Quick talked a little bit about the ark. Some say that the panels leading up to this image of Jacob wrestling with the angel in the Ner Tamid looks like a ladder. And of course, that's the beginning of the Jacob story. Jacob is the younger twin of Jacob and Esau. And through a series of bad advice and some very serious mistakes, Jacob ends up tricking his old blind father to steal from his brother. And at the end of those days, once Esau realizes he's been stolen from by his younger brother, he says to Jacob, when Dad dies and Dad was on his deathbed, I'm going to get you. And he was serious. And so the story goes that Jacob, who's probably 17 years old, there's lots of 17-year-olds who make really bad mistakes. Jacob now is on the run from where Canaan, modern-day Israel, towards Haran, modern-day Syria, to go back to a section of the family that never continued the journey. His uncle Lavan is there. So here you have this 17-year-old kid who's made horrible mistakes, burned bridges at home, and now here he is out in the world on foot in very dangerous territory. You can imagine this is a bad scene. He is at his lowest of the low, and as the sun begins to set on that first night, Jacob, with nothing in his pocket and nowhere to go and nowhere to go to, goes to sleep in a ditch on the side of the road. A rock for his pillow. This poor schlub, he's got to put his head on a pillow, head on a rock for a pillow. And there's something profound happens according to our tradition. In the story, Jacob has a dream. And in the dream, there are angels going up and down a ladder. Up and down a ladder. And at the top of the ladder is God. This is his dream in the Torah. And God addresses Jacob. And the gist of what God says to Jacob is not excusing him for what he did, and not saying what he did wasn't wrong. He just says, hey, this dirt that you're sleeping in, someday this is going to belong to you and your offspring. And now you have nothing and nobody, but someday your offspring is going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And, Jacob, no matter where you go and what you do, I'm with you. That's the message, right? No matter what, no matter your mistakes, I'm with you. Jacob, in the Torah, wakes up, realizes that he's just encountered something profound. This dream is more than just a dream. And he utters the words, Ma norah hamakom hazeh. How awesome is this place? Ve'ani lo yadati. And I did not even know it. He didn't experience God in a synagogue, right? It wasn't amongst a big cemetery, seminaries. Not cemetery. Ceremony. Words. The dust on the side of the road. And so if we can encounter God at that low, low place, and sometimes that's where we do, all the more so in other places from there. So friends, Hashkivenu on page 161 is our prayer, where we acknowledge that life is not rainbows and unicorns all the time. Life can be really, really hard and scary and dangerous and alone. Hashkivenu is the prayer where we ask for God's Sukkot Shalom, God's protective veil of peace to come over us. Hashkivenu can be found on 161.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoeinu l'chaim u'shalom b'tavei
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom,
V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim, V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Jacob eventually makes it to Haran, and he works for his uncle Laban for 20 years. And in that time, he learns a lot. He marries 2 sisters and 2 of their handmaidens. And at the end of the 20 years, he looks in the proverbial mirror, and he's not sure he likes what he sees. The question comes up all the time, why is Jacob, this guy who tricked his old blind father to steal from his brother, why is he considered a spiritual hero? That's not nice what he did. It's not nice for anybody, much less family. Why is he considered the spiritual hero? And this is why. Because eventually, it takes him 20 years, but eventually he makes things right. He looks in that proverbial mirror and he wonders to himself, who am I really? Am I the guy who would trick my old blind father and steal from my brother? Or can I be something more? Am I meant to be something more? And so Jacob gathers his wives and his children and his servants and his flocks and his possessions and starts heading back after 20 years back towards Canaan. His brother Esau, while Jacob is becoming a successful shepherd, has become successful in his own right. Esau has become a warlord. Esau always was a tough guy. In Torah, he's described as a wild ass of a man. I can't make that up. Becomes a warlord. And so Esau hears that his brother Jacob is coming back with his people. And yeah, you remember the last thing that Esau said to him, I'm going to get you for what you did. So now things get pretty intense in the Torah. Jacob hears that Esau now has heard he's coming and is sending his own men. And Esau starts sending emissaries his way towards his brother, letting him know that he comes in peace. The night before they're supposed to meet, Jacob takes his family and divides them into 2 on both sides of the river Jabbok. The idea is in case there was a night attack, at least half the family would survive. When 2 clans meet each other in the bad old days, not much is left at the end of that time. It's very, very serious. So he divides his family into 2. He goes and he says what he needs to each of his wives and his kids, essentially gets his affairs in order. And then he goes to an island in the middle of the river, and he's there in prayer or meditation or something along those lines. Now we've got this other very powerful scene. We're in the middle of the night in Ish, sometimes translated as an angel. Most literally, it's translated as a being. This angel, this being comes and begins to wrestle with Jacob. Now Jacob, whose name literally translates as heel, like the heel of a foot, is, stubborn and strong, and he digs in. And sometimes Jacob is winning in this struggle, and sometimes the angel is winning in this struggle. At one point, it gets so intense that Jacob's hip gets wrenched. And the rabbis say that he walked with an injury. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Physically, he was never the same again. But at the end of the evening, as the light starts to come up, the angel says, let me go. And Jacob said, I won't let you go until you bless me. In other words, until we get some sort of meaning, some sort of silver lining at the end of this whole experience, I'm not letting you go. And so the angel blesses him. It says, your name is no longer Yaakov, Jacob. Your name is now Yisrael, for you have wrestled with beings divine and human and prevailed. Yisra is a Hebrew derivative meaning wrestle, and El is God. So Jacob becomes the God wrestler, challenging reality, not leaving well enough alone. Now, 2 points before I get to the symbol up here which shows this whole story. The rabbis asked the question, what was the face that Jacob saw on this angel? And some of the rabbis say it was Esau's face. He had to come to terms or come to grips with his brother, the power dynamics, the struggles, and who they each were. But the part that I like best is some of the rabbis say that clearly the face that the angel wore was Jacob's own. This is early psychology. He was struggling with himself. Who was he going to be? The heel or something greater? So this Ner Tamid up here, this is the image of Jacob wrestling with the angel. When we're done with services, anybody and everybody's welcome to come up and look closely at all of these things. So you've got this image of Jacob wrestling with the angel. Jacob's children become known as Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, and the spiritual inheritors of this attribute of being a God wrestler, being able to stand up and face reality even when it's dark and scary. Those 12 children, and each of these panels represents one of those sons, go on to start the 12 tribes. They become known as Bnei Yisrael. And we, the Jewish people, thousands of years later, also have the name Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. We have inherited the God wrestler attribute spiritually. How did Israel get its name as a state? When the folks were deciding what Israel was going to be called, there was a couple options. I won't go into it. There's a couple options. Ultimately, Yisrael. 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 We are a nation of God wrestlers. Vishamru can be found on page 162.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
At the end of Joseph's life, one of Jacob's sons, Joseph's life, well, the end of Jacob's life, and Joseph's still around at this. This is the end of Torah. Jacob is on his deathbed, and he calls his sons to him, first his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Mi'ela, who are these guys? That's what Jacob says. He doesn't recognize the grandsons. We talked about this a little bit last week. The grandsons don't look Jewish, according to what Grandpa thinks they ought to look like. Joseph has married the Egyptian high priest's daughter, whose name is Osnat. Keep that one in for you. And the kids look like mom. They speak Egyptian, they dress Egyptian, they have her coloring, the royal mannerisms of Pharaoh's palace. So they come in to see Grandpa for the blessing, and Grandpa says, Mi'ela, who are these guys? And according to the Midrash, It's not in Torah, the Midrash. The kids look at Grandpa and they say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. In other words, hey, we're it. It's a Sibboleth, right? It's a code, right? We are the new Jews. Now, the blessing that traditionally Jewish families give to children and grandchildren on Friday nights is the priestly benediction. And those words, Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and keep you. Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'chonecha, may God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom, may God's face turn towards you and grant you peace. These are these words on Friday night we bless in the name of Ephraim and Manasseh, these two brothers who are very minor characters. And so the rabbis ask, why is it that this really important blessing that is a cornerstone of Jewish family life, why is it in the name of these two very minor characters? Why not in Moses or David or Abraham? And their answer, there's lots of them, but the one that I like is Ephraim and Manasseh are the first two brothers in Torah to get along. All right? There's not a great family history of brothers getting along. There's serious family dysfunction. And that's really what we're asking for when we're blessing our kids and our grandkids. This is the only prayer in Torah from a grandparent to a grandchild. What we're asking for when we're giving this blessing is that our kids are going to get along, and not just when we're watching them, but after we're long gone. That's the blessing. That's the hope. And I think a lot of you can relate to this. So in the story, Jacob gathers all of his sons together around him, and he gives them each a blessing. For instance, Judah is like a lion, okay? And others, like Simeon and Levi, the blessings are more like curses. Cursed be your wrath, it's out of control. You have done murder, right? And that's another piece of the story we won't get into tonight. So you've got the blessings and the curses given by, they're not really curses, they're all supposed to be blessings, given by the patriarch, and the description of each of those blessings has been portrayed in an artistic expression in each one of the panels of the ark. So after the service, you come on up and you'll see that in Hebrew, in cursive in Hebrew, you can see each of the names. This is Gad, right? Asher, and so on and so forth. And the symbolism that's there is the symbolism right from the Torah that comes from the blessing that the patriarch, their father, gave them. So here's one of the things, the takeaways from this. This is a family that had, let's just be kind and call it major ups and downs. Okay? Major challenges, estrangement, okay? Fighting, physical fighting. They had their downs and they also had their ups, okay? Coming together for the very best times. And whatever was going on in their life, this family was able to come together to be with their father in his final day or days, and to be with him as he passed. And I think that is something really amazing and not to be taken for granted. So here at Temple Emanu-El, here we are sitting in the sanctuary, surrounded by the symbols that relate right to the stories that are a part of our cultural DNA and our people. And I know from looking around that so many people here, so many congregants, have had some of their cornerstone life experiences right here in their sanctuary, surrounded by family and friends and community. And we're talking baby namings and brisses, bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs, weddings, funerals, all right here in this space. What this space and the memories that we create in it allow us to do is to remind ourselves that we're part of something vast and incredible, that we have a place in it and a role to play, that we can bring the world from where it is to where it needs to be, and that we can glom on to these sacred relationships that we have, and by really delving into them and hanging on to them, cleaving them, we can recognize the meaning that life has to offer. We rise now for our Amidah, which you'll find on page 164.
Adonai sibatai tiftachu fi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Be'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rab LaHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechokel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asirim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Elah, Melech Meimid, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
We invite you to continue to pray silently in your prayer book, either with the words of the text or the words of your heart. When your prayer is complete, feel free to have a seat. Our rabbis say that any time that we come together, we're obligated to pray for peace, peace amongst nations, peace amongst neighbors, peace in our own hearts.
Say shalom bimroma, huya say shalom, oh say shalom shalom bimroma. Hu yaseh shalom. Oseh shalom bimroma. Hu yaseh shalom. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Amen.
Beautiful. So just composed that this week. She did. All right, Bill Keller, please come on up as co-president and share some words to these good people.
Thank you. Jessica, that was lovely. Thanks. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
It's wonderful to see you all and be able to celebrate Shabbat together again tonight. I wish you all a happy secular New Year. First, a thank you to our ushers this evening, Linda Satloff and Jennifer Hauser. We truly appreciate your help tonight. And a special thank you to all of you who volunteer your time to help make ours the wonderful congregation that it is. Now here's a sampling of just a few of our upcoming events. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, Rabbi Anderson will lead a Kaddish Minyan service in the Colbert Library, immediately followed at 9 o'clock with Hefer Torah. Next weekend, our high school students will be attending the Nifty Sar Winter Kala at Camp Coleman. And on Saturday, the 14th, at 11 o'clock, Rabbi Max and Rabbi Rachel will lead a Tat Shabbat for our very youngest. And finally, on Friday, January 20th, join us here for our Friday with Friends Shabbat dinner, to be followed by our musical Southern Soul Shabbat service. These are just a few of the activities going on here at Temple. I encourage you to review the emails and our website for everything else going on, and come join us. I'd like to take this time to wish Marvin Goldstein a very happy birthday. And the best news is that we get the presents. Marvin and Ann have generously donated funds to our synagogue, and in the not too distant future, we'll be dedicating the Goldstein Kitchen once the renovations are complete. Thank you, Marvin and Ann. Did you know that it was this week in 2011 that singer-songwriter Debbie Friedman passed away? So many of the tunes and songs we know and love today come to us from Debbie. I'm sure Jessica knows this best of all. In her own words, which still ring true today, she said, "I've tried to help people see how prayer can be a source of comfort in both good times and bad. I want to help people to begin their day with an open heart, to learn to pray in a comfortable, non-threatening way. Maybe they'll first experience it as music, but over time they may learn the prayers. In this time of tremendous uncertainty, when so many are feeling anxious and stressed, the comfort and sense of peace that prayer brings is a wonderful thing. To be able to start your day that way is even better." And as Rabbi said, if you are a new member, a prospective member, or just visiting, we'd appreciate it if you would introduce yourself to the clergy and myself during the Oneg, so that we can personally welcome you if we've not done so already. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Bill, why don't you hang on to the microphone? I'm going to send you cruising around here. So friends, we're getting ready for our Shehech Yanu moment, and the tradition here at Temple Emanu-El is that if you've got something good going on in your life, a simcha, something that just happened that's really good, is happening or is about to happen, that you say your name and you share your simcha. So I'll give you a for instance. My name's Spike Anderson, and my simcha this week is that my aunt, Sherry Anderson, moved in with us, so we have a 6 dinner plate at our table, and we're really very happy about that. So go ahead, kind of raise a finger or a hand if you got something to share. This is part of being a sacred community.
I'm Henry Wallach, and in 2 weeks I will be having my bar mitzvah.
Yeah, you will. It's going to be great.
I'm Nancy Kaiser, and this is really big, or I would never open my mouth. My first grandson was born in New Zealand on Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's probably Thursday there, though. Tuesday there. All right.
My name's Jocelyn Hathaway, and on Monday it's my birthday.
Hey, Jocelyn, that's great.
I am Stuart Katz. This is Lisa Katz, and our son was recently married.
Hey, mazel tov. Others, simchas to share.
I'll share.
Yeah, please, Jess.
My brother-in-law, or my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law who live right down the street from us, welcome to baby boy on Sunday.
Yeah, it's so great. So friends, as we Jews do when we know we're experiencing a certain type of time, sacred time, that we pray Shehachianu. Literally, thank you, God, for this moment of time that we're here, that we're together, and may we have this type of sacredness and communal connection again and again and again. Page 648, Shehachianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Shehachianu v'kimanu v'hegianu lazman hazeh. We're getting ready for our Misha Barach prayer. This is our prayer that we ask for a healing of mind, of body, of soul, of relationship. The congregation asks for a refuah shlema, a complete healing for Brenda Grazier, Chaim Ben Sarah, Marvin Davis, Jerry Penn, Rick Shapiro, Cindy Hirsch, Mayor Ben Rachmael Vadina, Alvin Levy, Kaska Miskoji, George Richfeld, Harvey Apple, Ken Schiffer, Kernina Michal Bat Yitzchak Vitova, Jennifer Herman, Neil Schwartz, Rosa Zaretsky, Vincenzo Restituto, Laura Garrett, Hank Levine, Carol Stoff, Charles Riddick, Kathy Moll. If you have somebody in your life, and it can be you, that you would like to say Misha Barach for, asking for a healing, please say that person's name either out loud or when my eyes meet yours. Thank you. 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 Okay, the Minhag HaMakom is that we rise either in body or in spirit. And if you're comfortable putting your arm around the person next to you, that you do so now. If you don't have someone put your arm around, you can feel my arms around yours, okay? Misha Barach together, which is on page 371.
Of strength, who bless the ones before. those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Refuah Shlema. Please remain standing for Kiddush 123. If you are not yet bar bat mitzvahed and you're under 14, come on up here. Come on. Here. Take one of these. There we go. There we go. Great. And Bill, will you pass some of these out to the other folks? 123, we raise our glasses.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikorei kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu, baruch
Okay, we raise 'em up.
atah Adonai,
Mekadesh Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim the bracha, to life with blessings. Okay, and your little cups can go right here, and then I'm going to ask you all to come on up to the ark. Jocelyn, lead the way, please. Elenu, page 586. We're going to open the ark.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot,
Velo samanu kamishpachot adama,
shelo sam chelkenu kahem,
Vegoralenu kechol hamonam. And we bow.
Vanachnu korim,
Uvistachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. 591. Emai v'haya Adonai, Lamelech al kol haaretz, Vayom hahu, Vayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo echad. And we close the ark. Reach inside, Henry. There you go. Please be seated. Friends, we're getting ready for our Mourner's Kaddish, which you'll find on page 598. We say the Mourner's Kaddish as part of the service and at the end of the service because we know that it actually uplifts the time by invoking the name or names of those who we have loved and loved us, who have died at this season's past. We actually raise up the level of sanctity in this room. The religious explanation for this is they have an aliyat hanefesh, they have an ascent of soul when we say their name at this time. And the psychological explanation is that when we say their name in a particular setting like this one, we're flooded with memory, flooded with sacred memory. And of course, the two are not mutually exclusive. You can have both at the same time. In Shloshim, the families of Michael Efron, Bernard Greenstein, Sharon Stricker, Yard sites for this Shabbat: David Andelman, Nate Arrett, Israel Bear, Nettie Bernstein, Sylvia Brownstein, Suzanne Davidson, Maxime Deutsch, Ezra Eisenberg, Sheila Fisher, Aaron Friedman, Judith Fruthall, Loretta Gilman, Carol Gittis, Eugene Goldman, Heidi Greenberg, Rose Hauser, Ann Katz, Eleanor Katz, Murray Klein, Bernard Kobrinsky, Issy Kuttner, Julius Malcolm Lindy, Steve Marcus, Lawrence Daniel Marcus, Alice Mordler, Irving Nathans, Francis Risner, Bessie Satloff, Alfred Schiff, Augusta Schrag, H. Nathan Seidel, Mark Allen Seldes, Isidore Smith, Carol Tittman. If you are in the Shloshim period of mourning, the first 30 days after a loved one's passing, we invite you to rise now so we can recognize you. If you're in the first year of mourning a loved one's passing, we ask you to rise now and be recognized. If you are commemorating the yard site, the death anniversary of a loved one's passing, the Shabbat, we ask you to rise now so we can recognize you. And if it is your custom to rise in solidarity, or for the 6 million who have no one to say Kaddish for them, rise now either physically or in spirit. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. Take a moment to call to your memory the person whom you are saying Kaddish for. Yikada v'yikada shmei rabbah, ve'alma divra chirote, ve'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon, v'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, Bagalav Izman Kari Vimru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba Mevarach Leolam Olame Amaya. Yit Baraf, V'yishtabaf, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yit Raman, V'yit Nase. Vita Dar, Vita La, Vita La Shmei de Kutsha, Barichu. La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata. Tush B'charta V'nechamata. Damiram Be'alma Vimru Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Hosei shalom b'imru mav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Oh, say shalom b'imru mav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu. Shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.